Good morning, children. Today we will start a new chapter in civics, gender, religion, and caste. Let us begin. Gender and politics. Let us begin with gender division. This is a form of hierarchical social division seen everywhere, but is rarely recognized in the study of politics. The gender division tends to be understood as natural and unchangeable. However, it is not based on biology but on social expectations and stereotypes. Public and private division. Boys and girls are brought up to believe that the main responsibility of women is housework and bringing up children. You have studied such a kind of chapter in class 7 also, where it was written in that chapter that in our society it is commonly believed that the girls should be brought up in such a way that when they are when they grow up, they should be able to look after their families. They should be able to do household work. They should be able to do everything that is related to their family, looking after the children, cooking food, etc. Whereas men are always assigned duties which are related to doing job. They are bound to do, you should not say they are bound to do, but it is believed that boys will be trained from their childhood in such a way that when they grow up, they should be able to fulfill the needs of their family by earning money. So this kind of gender division is often seen in our Indian society. Boys and girls are brought up to believe that the main responsibility of women is housework and bringing up children. This is reflected in a sexual division of labor. That means this is seen when we divide labor, we divide work among men and women. In most families, women do all work inside the home, such as cooking, cleaning, washing clothes, tailoring, looking after children, etc. And men do all the work outside the home. This is what I told just now, that we are trained in such a way. The Indian families are trained in such a way that as soon as boy or a girl is born, we start discriminating them. We start discriminating them starting from the kind of toys we give them. Boys are given cars to play with. They can show that they have a mechanical bent of mind when they do something with their cars, etc. And the girls are often given dolls to play with. Men do all the work outside the home. It is not that men cannot do housework. They simply think that it is for women to attend to these things. When these jobs are paid for, men are ready to take up these works. You must have seen that in many of the hotels, the chefs are male chefs. So when they are given payment for this, then they are ready to do such kind of jobs like cooking food. Otherwise, it is believed that cooking food means it is the work of a lady and men should not do. When these jobs are paid for, men are ready to take up these works. Most tailors or cooks in the hotels are men. Similarly, it is not that women do not work outside their home. In villages, women fetch water, collect fuel, and work in the fields. In urban areas, poor women work as domestic helper in middle class homes, while middle class women work in offices. In fact, the majority of women do some sort of paid work in addition to domestic labor. Domestic labor means the work which they do in their homes. But their work is not valued and does not get recognition. So whatever women are doing, they are doing double duty. They are doing work in their home also, and they are going outside also to do jobs. But their work is neither given value nor given recognition. It is not given any importance. The result of this division of labor is that although women constitute half of the humanity, their role in public life, especially politics, is minimal in most societies. So this is the result of gender discrimination, that especially in the field of politics, their participation is minimum, their role is minimum. Earlier, only men were allowed to participate in public affairs, vote and contest for public offices. Gradually, the gender issue was raised in politics. That means it was believed that no, this kind of discrimination is wrong and women should also be given equal participation. Women in different parts of the world organized and agitated for equal rights. There were agitations in different countries for the extension of voting rights to women. So earlier you have studied in class 9th also that earlier only men were allowed to vote. But later on there was a lot of opposition and women's right to vote was also emphasized upon. These agitations demanded enhancing the political and legal status of women and improving their educational and career opportunities. More radical women's movements aimed at equality in personal and family life as well. These movements are called feminist movements. It can be an important question. What do you mean by feminist movements? So you will write that the movements that aimed at bringing equality in personal as well as family life of women were called feminist movements. The word feminist means relating to women. Political expression of gender division and political mobilization on this question helped to improve women's role in public life. We now find women working as scientists, doctors, engineers, lawyers, managers, and college and university teachers, which were earlier not considered suitable for women. So, due to feminist movements, due to a big revolution that has come about in the society, now you can name any field and you will find women working there. There is no field now where women participation is not seen. In some parts of the world, for example, in Scandinavian countries such as Sweden, Norway and Finland, the participation of women in public life is very high. In our country, women still lag much behind men despite some improvement since independence. Ours is still a male-dominated patriarchal society. Patriarchal society means a male-dominated society where men have an upper hand. Women face disadvantage, discrimination and oppression in various ways. The literacy rate among women is only 54% compared with 76% among men. So these are the fields we are going to read about, the areas where still we can see discrimination among men and women. First is the field of education. The literacy rate has a lot of variation. 54% of women are only getting education, whereas among men, 76% men are educated. Similarly, a smaller proportion of girl students go for higher education. When we look at school results, girls perform as well as boys, if not better in some places. But they drop out because parents prefer to spend their resources for their boys' education rather than spending equally on their sons and daughters. No wonder the proportion of women among the highly paid and valued jobs is still very small. Now the second field where we can see gender discrimination is in the field of jobs. On an average, an Indian woman works 1 hour more than an average man every day. Yet, Much of our work is not paid and therefore often not valued. The Equal Remuneration Act 1976 provides that equal wages should be paid to equal work. However, in almost all areas of work, from sports and cinema to factories and fields, women are paid less than men even when both do exactly the same work. So this is the third area. We say that equal pay for equal work, but actually this is not practiced. Women are paid less as compared to men, although they are doing the same work. In many parts of India, parents prefer to have sons and find ways to have the girl child aborted before she is born. Such sex selective abortion led to decline in child sex ratio, number of girl children per thousand boys in the country to merely 914. As the map shows, this ratio has fallen below 850 or even 800 in some places. So the percentage of the girl child is falling because in many places many families get the girl child aborted. There are reports of various kinds of harassment, exploitation and violence against women. Urban areas have become particularly unsafe for women. They are not safe even within their own home from beating, harassment and other forms of domestic violence. Women's political representation. So we have seen in how many fields, in how many areas gender discrimination is very clearly visible. Now we will see what is the criteria of women participation as far as political field is concerned. All this is well known, yet issues related to women's well-being or otherwise are not given adequate attention. This has led to feminists and women's movement to the conclusion that unless women control power, their problems will not get adequate attention. So it has due to the feminist movements which started came to a conclusion that unless and until some power is given in the hands of women, their problems will not come under control. Their problems will not get adequate attention. One way to ensure this is to have more women as elected representatives. When they will get representation in political field, they will have power and then only their problems will get adequate attention and they will be resolved. In India, the proportion of women in legislature has been very low. For example, the percentage of elected women members in Lok Sabha has crossed 10% of its total strength for the first time in 2009. Their share in the state assemblies is less than 5%. In this respect, India is among the bottom group of nations in the world. India is behind the average for several developing countries of Africa and Latin America. In the government, cabinets are largely all male, even when a woman becomes the chief minister or the prime minister. Majority of the cabinet members you will see are male cabinet members. One way to solve this problem is to make it legally binding to have a fair proportion of women in the elected bodies. So this is the solution to this problem, that in order to make sure that women participation increases, what should be done? There should be some legal binding. A law should be made that a certain number of women have to be there in the elected bodies. This is what the Panchayati Raj has done in India. 1/3 of seats in local government bodies in panchayats and municipalities are now reserved for women. So when this need was felt, changes have been made, improvements have been made, and now 1/3 of the seats in the local government bodies, that is the panchayats and municipalities, are now reserved for women. Now there are more than 10 lakh elected women representatives in rural and urban local bodies. Women's organizations and activists have been demanding a similar reservation of at least one third of the seats in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies for women. A bill with this proposal has been pending before the parliament for more than a decade, but there is no consensus over this among all the political parties. The bill has not been passed. Gender division is an example that some form of social division needs to be expressed in politics. This also shows that disadvantaged groups do benefit when social divisions become a political issue. Do you think that women could have made the gains we noted above in their equal treatment was not raised in political domain? Religion, communalism and politics. Let us now turn to a very different kind of social division, the division based on religious differences. This division is not as universal as gender, but religious diversity is fairly widespread in the world today. Many countries, including India, have their population followers of different religions. We all know that India is a country where so many religions are practiced. We are a secular country, and every person, each individual has been given the freedom to practice his or her religion, the religion of his or her choice. As we noticed in the case of Northern Ireland, even when most of the people belong to the same religion, there can be serious differences about the way people practice that religion. Unlike gender differences, the religious differences are often expressed in the field of politics. Consider the following. Gandhiji used to say that religion can never be separated from politics. What he meant by religion was not any particular religion like Hinduism or Islam, but moral values that inform all religions. He believed that politics must be guided by ethics drawn from religion. Very important thing was told by Gandhiji, and very a thing which is true always, whether it is 21st century or it was in the past or it will be in the future. This concept will always remain true, that religion and politics can never be discriminated. He did not mean, by the word religion, he did not mean specifically Hindu religion or Muslim religion or Christianity or Sikhism. No, he said that the good things, the moral values which each religion teaches us, that has to be followed in political field also. The good things, the ethics, the moral values which our religion teaches, which other religions also teach, because all the religions teach good things. No religion teaches anything bad. So Gandhiji said that whatever moral values, whatever ethics the religions teach us, those things must guide us when we enter into political field. That is why he said that that religion and politics cannot be separated. Human rights groups in our country have argued that most of the victims of the communal rights in our country are people from religious minorities. They have demanded that the government take special steps to protect religious minorities. Women's movements has argued that family laws of all religions discriminate against women. So they have demanded that government should change these laws to make them more equitable. That means more equality should be given to women as far as family laws are concerned. All these instances involve relationship between religion and politics, but they do not seem very wrong or dangerous. Ideas, ideals, and values drawn from different religions can and perhaps should play a role in politics. People should be able to express in politics their needs, interests, and demands as a member of a religious community. Those who hold political power should sometimes be able to regulate the practice of religion so as to prevent discrimination and oppression. I am repeating this again. Those who hold political power should sometimes be able to regulate the practice of religion so as to prevent discrimination and oppression. That means those who have power in their hand, those who are in power in the field of politics, they should regulate the practice of religion in such a way that there is no discrimination on the basis of religion and there is no oppression in the name of religion. These political acts are not wrong as long as they treat every religion equally. So if it is seen that there is no discrimination, there is no oppression, then no political acts will be considered wrong as far as religion is concerned. Now children, in our next class, we will start a new heading, communalism. That's all for today. Thank you.